Hello, welcome back. This is episode 23 of B-Ball Pro Insider. I am Candace Wiggins and we have a lot to get to, so I'm gonna get right to it, starting with the title. No, the title is not clickbait. That is gonna be the subject of today's episode. Best finals matchup ever. So the main reason for this title is, even if it's a shorter series, even if it doesn't go the distance and it's just a 5-game series or a sweep, it still is such a good matchup. It's so epic already. And no matter the outcome, no matter the score, both these teams are playing brilliant basketball, especially the Bucks. And I'm gonna start with the Bucks. Previously, I didn't really wanna make a lot of assumptions because I really wanted the players' performance to really shape the narrative, because I feel like no matter what we on the outside have to say, it's really the players who are really gonna tell us what's going on. And after watching the first 2 games, I feel like I have a very clear, strong understanding and indication of where the series is headed. And initially, my first thoughts were there's a lot of question marks surrounding the Milwaukee Bucks, but in my opinion, the Milwaukee Bucks have answered that. And I think going forward, now what I used to believe what was going to happen, I think it's going to be a totally different narrative. It's going to be a new narrative now. And that is, the series has the potential to go the distance. All of this is as predicted based on Game 3. Game 3 is a huge momentum shifting moment. It is a make or break moment for the Milwaukee Bucks, for sure. I really think that the Milwaukee Bucks are going to be able to capitalize on this opportunity. And I want to talk about that first before I get into Phoenix, because the thing about the Milwaukee Bucks is that, you know, number one, they are playing like the best version of themselves. There was a lot of questions coming into this series, especially after Giannis Antetokounmpo hurt his knee, and it looked like he was going to be out for a significant amount of time, and then he came back in game 1 and 2. And, you know, when I was watching the Bucks in the last series against the Atlanta Hawks, I felt like it was a blessing. It was almost a blessing, Giannis being out, because of all the players stepping up and fulfilling roles in his absence. But now I have to say it is an even bigger blessing having Giannis back into the lineup. So I think that the Bucks are blessed on top of blessed now, and that's what's really contributing to them playing like the best version of themselves. And it's really good to see that, because, you know, either team, whoever wins, they're both playing at the highest level. So it's going to make it very, very competitive moving forward. So it's all about Game 3 going forward. Game 3 is going to basically determine if this series is a short series or if it's going long distance. If Milwaukee wins Game 3, I sincerely feel like it's going to be a 7-game series, because I feel like Milwaukee is going to build on that momentum and win Game 4. Personally, I have Game 4 for Milwaukee penciled in as a win, an instant win anyway, because I don't see Milwaukee losing twice. So if they did drop Game 3, I feel like they're going to right away win Game 4. But also, if they win Game 3, that's giving them momentum, especially if they have a blueprint of the success and the formula it took to win Game 3 to take it into Game 4. So I believe that Game 4 is going to basically be a follow-up to Game 3, even if they lose, I don't see Milwaukee losing twice. The biggest thing that Milwaukee has going for them is their defense. And Coach Budenholzer was talking about that. He was stressing that, you know, they really hang their hat on their defense, and that's really brought them this far throughout the entire playoffs. And you could see it. But in Game 2, you could absolutely see, hands down, the Bucks defense, their defensive strategy, and how, you know, it operates. Even though they lost Game 2 by a margin of 10. They lost Game 1 by 13. So they only added +3, you know, to the total score, so you can't really tell on the score. But watching the games, you could see there were 2 totally different strategies. And I think that this strategy is a strategy that can actually move to Milwaukee and be very beneficial to them. So basically, you know, their defensive strategy, and I'll get into what that is and what I saw and what I believe the strengths are of that strategy, plus home court advantage. This is the time, this is the safest, smartest time to put your Bucks on the Bucks. And I, in fact, am going to put my Bucks on the Bucks for Game 4 for sure. It really felt like a coin toss for Game 3. It could go either way. The Suns really have an opportunity to steal Game 3, I feel like, more than Game 4 even. But we'll get to the Suns in a little bit. Initially, I actually had the Suns winning Game 3. But now that I'm thinking about it, I think I'm going to put my Bucks on the Bucks for Game 3 as well. I think it's going to be the closest game of the entire series. It's going to be the series-shifting, series-defining game, because the Bucks will be able to see and test if their strategy travels back at home and if they can really implement that. So with this new defensive strategy plus home court advantage, now it's back in Milwaukee, I feel like that gives Milwaukee the edge. And like I was mentioning in the previous episode, I didn't want to make a lot of assumptions, going forward. But now I think it's safe to make some assumptions. Now I think that this is the time now where you can really basically start assuming things. You can assume that Jrue Holiday, who I think is the key, is absolutely the key on defense, but even on offense, you can assume that Jrue Holiday is going to have an amazing performance at home. You can assume that Giannis is going to continue what he's been doing. He's going to be able to do that same production home versus away. And you can assume that he's going to make a lot more free throws at home. You can assume that the complementary players like PJ Tucker and Brooke Lopez and Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton and Bryn Forbes are going to continue their production, probably even better at home. You can pretty much assume that there's going to be Bobby chants at Fiserv Forum. You can just make all kind of assumptions now, and I think that all of that plays into the fact that Milwaukee has the momentum coming back their way. And like I said, it's all really about their defense, but I think that added to the offensive strength that they clearly have at home makes them really, really difficult to beat. Okay. And if there was a question, if there was any kind of suspicion or a question, I think the biggest one would be Chris Middleton. To me, Chris Middleton is the offensive key for the Bucks. Whether he has a good game at home or not. It's kind of been up and down for him sometimes at home, but basically if Chris Middleton has an amazing performance at home, it's pretty much game over if Chris Middleton has high production. So I think if there was any question mark, which really shouldn't be a question mark because Chris Middleton is just on point and he always has been, and I just think that he's going to have an amazing performance. But when he has a stellar performance at home, it's game over. I just think that, if there is any question, the question would lie in there. That would be the key for Phoenix to have success. They would need, a player like Chris Middleton to not produce at home, or Jrue Holiday, or someone who they really depend on to get production outside of Giannis to have a struggle game. And I just don't see that happening. It's the finals, and these Bucks team, like I said, they're playing like the best version of themselves. So they're a really scary team like that. But at least the Suns can know that if they did beat the Bucks, they beat the Bucks at their best. So. Okay, now I want to really quickly get into the defensive strategy of the Milwaukee Bucks that I saw from game 2 versus game 1. And, really it comes down to the Suns. Obviously the Suns have, I talked about it before, 2 guard leaders where they go. The team goes where they go, and that is Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Everyone knows that by now. It's no surprise. But it was really interesting to see the shift that Coach Budenholzer made, the adjustments he made. In game 1, it was PJ Tucker who was guarding Chris Paul, and it was Jrue Holiday that was guarding Devin Booker, but he switched that in game 2, and it was a really interesting dynamic. So Jrue Holiday guarded Chris Paul, and PJ Tucker guarded Devin Booker. The key here was, Jrue Holiday was able to really, change the entire pace of the game by just, picking up Chris Paul. He had length, he really used that length. Chris Paul is the #1 facilitator for the Phoenix Suns offense. Basically the head and the hands of the Phoenix. Everything goes through his mind, everything goes through his passes. He sets up himself for his own shot, and he's also looking to facilitate to others. So he is such an important key, obviously, to their offense because he is the functioning system. He is the facilitator. So he's the primary one, and the ball's in his hands a lot. So when Milwaukee picked up on that and they put their premier defensive player on Chris Paul, that made a huge difference. Okay, and then when you think about the secondary facilitator, which is Devin Booker, they really, really keyed in on him. They were really playing a lot of team help defense. So the Bucks strategy in game 2 was clearly targeted towards Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder, saying, basically, these 2 guys are going to beat us. We're not going to have these 2 guys beat us. We're going to have these other 2. And even though Devin Booker had 31 points in the second game and 27 in the first game, you could tell that it was a lot more different the way he got his shots. They were definitely closing the gaps where he couldn't drive and seeing passing lanes. He had to become more of a facilitator than a scorer for his own shots because they were cutting off. It ended up in wins. Phoenix was able to win both games. However, you could tell that, the Bucks were able to kind of pick up on some of the weaknesses, if not weaknesses, were able to change the momentum of the game and dictate a little bit more on defense than they were in the first game. So I think that, this strategy is going to travel very well because, again, if they continue the strategy of game 2, which I felt was successful, even though they lost, I felt like it was successful. They're going to be challenging the players on Phoenix outside of Chris Paul and Devin Booker to beat them. And I think that's really difficult, home versus away. I think that you're going to really see that strategy play out very well in the Milwaukee's favor. Of course, it can always be, disrupted by production from Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder again, but that's a really difficult task to ask of complementary players for the Suns. So it's really going to be very interesting to see how that goes. Now, with all that said, Phoenix can absolutely steal one on the road, and they're very capable. They're capable of stealing 2 on the road. They could really have a sweep. So I think that really starts for Phoenix. It starts with game 3. Game 3 basically it's in Phoenix's hands. The way that they respond to the strategy of the Bucks and how the Bucks are going to challenge them by making them beat them with other players. And, obviously the Suns have their big 3, every team has a big 3. I think the Bucks have a big 3, and I think the Suns have a big 3. Chris Paul and Devin Booker, obviously, but also DeAndre Ayton. And DeAndre Ayton is actually who Chris Paul and his teammates consider him the MVP of their team. So I think that this game 3 is the perfect opportunity and the perfect moment for DeAndre Ayton to prove to an audience, to a widespread audience outside of his own teammates, to prove that he is the MVP of the Phoenix Suns. I think this is going to ask of him another performance, another stellar performance like he had in game 6 of the previous Clippers. This is what it's kind of reminding me of. This game 3 already feels like a game 6. Where they're going to really depend on him and need him to establish himself inside, because the Bucks are big. They're big and they go big. They go inside, so it's really going to be a huge moment for DeAndre Ayton to live up to that team MVP that he has been given, that title that he's been given by his own teammates. So they really believe in him and they trust in him, and this is really his moment, his opportunity to secure that. The Suns are a great team. They're very capable of stealing one on the road, and that's really going to determine the direction of it. So this game 3 is so key. And what I'm going to be personally looking for after all that said and thinking about the Bucks defensive strategy, when I think about the Suns, I feel like they're a team that is very, obviously they identify themselves as a defensive minded team and they take that approach, but offensively they have these weapons that just are almost unstoppable. And I really think it goes down to Devin Booker. And as I mentioned earlier, Chris Paul is really he's a primary facilitator. He has the ball in his hands. He is going to be able to make a lot of calls. He's going to be able to look for his own shot, make, opportunities and make moves for his own shot. But the key to me to the success of the Suns would be Devin Booker's shots, the shots that he gets and the quality of shots that he gets, the quantity and the quality, both. And I think that, that's something that I'm going to be personally looking for and watching for, because you could tell that the Bucks are really, really adamant on making sure that every single shot that he gets is contested. Every single shot that he gets is the toughest shot, and even preventing shots from happening in the first place by, like I said, giving them to other players like Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder. So really to watch for are the number of quality shots that Devin Booker is able to get, either from his own facilitation or from, others facilitating those shots for him. And I think that the Suns' success really is going to be, predicated on that one aspect. So with all that said, it's a totally new narrative, okay? Both these teams just feel like winners. And it's the true winner in this 2021 NBA Finals are the audience. We as the audience, we become the winners because we get to watch this brilliant basketball being displayed and played, fresh new faces, fresh new franchises in the finals, and it's just a really good time to be an NBA fan. I just, for me, I go back to when I was a player, and they even showed, I think they showed my 2012 when I played on the Lynx. We lost to the Indiana Fever in 2012, but I got to watch myself. I hadn't watched myself play in forever, and I was out of that game. We ended up losing, but I got a concussion, taking a charge, but I hit my last shot playing for the Minnesota Lynx. I hit my last shot as a baseline 3-pointer, And it just reminded me again, no matter what negative things that commentators have to say, and no matter what negativity's out there, trolls and all that, I really, really just appreciate these players and what they're doing, and how they're, putting themselves out there for the sake of performance. And I loved that. That was the one thing that I loved the most about being a professional athlete, was the performance aspect. I loved this time of year. That was you prepare your whole entire life for these moments, and these guys are no different. And it really is reminding me back of doing what I love to do, and it makes you forget about all the negativity. There's so much power in performance, and I think that these two teams are really displaying that. But it's far from over. It's far from finished, and this game 3 is going to determine what happens next. My own personal predictions are that the Bucks are going to win game 3 and win game 4, but I also could see the Phoenix Suns winning game 3, which would be a shame, because it would feel like that would kind of, wrap up the series. But if the Milwaukee Bucks win game 3, which they're totally capable of, which I think they will, game 4 is theirs to claim, and so we have a series, and I think it would go to 7. Some of the comments of the players themselves, there was mention about it being like a 0-0. The players know what's at stake. They're going to be as focused and as poised as they can coming into this moment. But I think, Devin Booker, he mentioned something, I think it was like the wisest thing ever, which was that he was talking about their approach, their team's approach. They were going to take it like every game's a game 7. If you take that approach and you prepare yourself every game, even a game 3, like it's game 7, and game 4 and 5, 6, when it comes to game 7, you've done that preparatory work where now you can just kind of cruise into the championship. And obviously there's a lot of hard work that's left, but I think that, these guys have done that. They know what they need to do next. This is just my own personal belief that, there's a new narrative. So everything that I said before about, it being a gentleman's sweep, totally capable, because Suns are capable. They're capable, very capable of stealing one on the road in Milwaukee. But I think that the Bucks are even more than capable of tying the series, and that's what I hope for, because this is the best finals matchup ever. We don't want this to end, right? All right, so this is going to be the second to last episode. We'll have one more episode, and that will be a recap of this season, reflection of the season. We started in January, just sitting there on the dock, and now here we are, and it's about to be, a championship award to some deserving team. And so here we are, and I really want to make sure, that just follow through. And then, I wanted to talk about trolling a little bit, but this series is just too good. This finals has just been too, awesome for me to even really get to negativity. So we'll get there. I'll cross that troll bridge, when we get there. But for right now, it's just really about enjoying this finals matchup, really about just enjoying game 3 and seeing, where this goes. And I hope that you'll be watching, because I certainly will be. And I hope you're watching, you catch up and see me on my next episode, where we'll be discussing, we'll be reviewing everything and recapping on what's to be an amazing series. All right, so you made it through. Just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you on my next and last episode.